Thanks for coming. This is huge for Belvidere. It's huge for Local 1268 and 1761. We got a lot of members here, retirees. We've got active. We've got laid off. We've got people that transferred. Everybody tied to 1268. Everybody I named, stand up. Stand up. So you guys know we have done everything we possibly can. As a membership, we have done everything we possibly can. We have put Belvidere on the map. We've taken it to the White House, across the U.S. Everybody knows where Belvidere's at. That's what we set out to do. When they have discussions or talking about Belvidere, that's from what we've done. The only guy we're waiting on is Carlos Tavares. The money is there. The land is there. The membership's here. The people want to transfer back home. We're ready. It's just him. Everybody's done everything they possibly could for this plant. We're waiting on him. So to me, with the way he's handling this company, they need to shit can Carlos. Plain and simple. Shit can Carlos. So today we've got Region 4 Director Brandon Campbell. We've got International President Shawn Fain. And some Senator Bernie Sanders. Anybody know him? So I'm gonna bring up Brandon Campbell, our Region 4 Director. He is from Local 1268 in Belvidere, and I'll bring him up to speak.
Good morning. Thank you. Hey, Matt had everybody from Belvidere stand up. Could I also, if you're able, please, all of our retirees, I don't care where you're from, I don't care if you're UAW or not, if you're retired, please stand up. We all stand on your shoulders. We appreciate every battle that you fought along the way, giving us the ability to fight this battle. So again, good morning, Belvidere. It's great to be back here. It ain't going to be long, and I'm going to be back here talking about the new vehicles rolling off of that line. And look, I may be the director of Region 4, but long before that title, and well after I'm done with it, I am Belvidere. This is my hometown. Belvidere has been home to three generations of my family. My father, my daughter, and now me. It gets a little personal, right? But this fight is not just about politics or trade policies or parties. It's personal. I've seen firsthand what happens when corporate greed absolutely guts our jobs and leaves our families to suffer. My daughter, my grandchildren were forced to move hundreds of miles away because of Stellantis' greed. Like I said, I'm Belvidere, and if we don't stand up and fight, if we don't fight for this, we are all going to be Belvidere, because the rich and the powerful are coming for every worker everywhere. Right now, and you hear President Fain talk about this all the time, the biggest issue that we face is the race to the bottom, and it's a race fueled by pure corporate greed, and it's supercharged by Donald Trump with his so-called trade deal, the USMCA, or as we like to call it, Trump's NAFTA, or NAFTA 2.0. Should be a boo. Thank you. The best I've ever been booed in my life, I think. Good job. But no, seriously, in this town, we don't need anybody to tell us, because we know, we live it. Trump's NAFTA has been brutal, absolutely brutal for the working class. Trump's NAFTA gave companies like John Deere, Case New Holland, Masterlock, these are centuries-old companies, household names. He gave them the green light to send our good-paying union jobs to Mexico, leaving working families to fight for fewer and fewer of these jobs. Trump's NAFTA, though, the good news is Trump's NAFTA is up for review in 2026. So we have got to ask ourselves, do we want Donald Trump back in office? Do we want him to be able to lock in this absolutely terrible trade deal and kill more good jobs? It better be louder than that. Do we want Trump back in office? That's what I'm talking about. So let's be honest, though. Trump ain't somebody who's going to admit a mistake, right, and then try to fix it. He ain't the guy to do that. No, he doubles down. He triples down. He blames others. He blames us, and he lashes out. That's what he did when General Motors announced closure of four American plants when he was the president. He blamed us, workers. He didn't do anything. Trump's trade deal is a loser, and the working class loses under his rule. But we've got a choice. We can double down on bad policy from a bad actor, or elect a leader like Kamala Harris, somebody who is Kamala Harris is somebody who has consistently fought for us and stood up for working families. Kamala Harris has had our backs. In fact, she was one of only 10 senators, there might be another one here today, who had the guts to vote against Trump's NAFTA. We need her in the White House to undo this disaster and fight for good union jobs, jobs that support our families, our communities, and our entire way of life. No matter what, we in the UAW, we're going to fight these greedy corporations, these greedy CEOs with every single thing we've got, including enforcing our contract, making them keep the promise. And we're doing that, as you see, against Stellantis, and we're going to continue to stand strong in every fight because we have seen what happens when companies break their promises. Kamala Harris has publicly supported us in our fight with Stellantis to bring these good jobs back, these good union jobs back that our families absolutely depend on. She knows what's at stake, and she's been with us every step of the way. The Biden-Harris administration bet on the American worker. They've invested billions to rebuild American manufacturing. That is the kind of leadership that we need. With Kamala Harris, we've got a future to vote for, not just a fraud to vote against. That, my friends, is refreshing after the political storm that we've been through the last 100 years, it feels like. But what happens? What happens to UAW members? What happens to workers everywhere if Donald Trump gets elected again? It would be horrendous. Horrendous. Donald Trump is nothing but a con man, a billionaire who cares only about himself and his wealthy friends. If he gets back in, he's going to fill important agencies with his corporate stooges who will tear down everything that we have built, everything that labor has built, everything that every one of those retirees that you saw stand up, everything that they've built. He promised to put Elon Musk in a cabinet position. Those two joked. They laughed. They laughed about how they would fire striking workers for standing up for their federally protected rights. They claim to be the party of rights and freedom. Bull stuff. Trump claimed that he wouldn't tax overtime. That's his selling point now, right? I won't tax overtime. But his Project 2025, under that, there is no overtime pay. If there's no pay, there's no tax, right? He's a fraud. This is the guy that also said he's got the best brain, The very best brain, wonderful brain. You believe that too? I don't. Look, we don't have to let any of that happen again. Instead of focusing on worst case scenarios, let's focus on what we can do right now, today. Let's get to work and make sure that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are elected, that they win this election. Because when they win, we win. And when the working class comes together and fights, when we fight, say it with me, we win. When we fight, we win. Let's get out there, fight like hell for our jobs, fight for our livelihood, our communities, and perfectly honest here, for our country. Thank you.
All right, so a lot of you guys know, you know Brandon, you know President Fain, and if you're UAW, you know the past administrations we've had as far as what's been done and how Belvidere has always been forgotten. And if Director Campbell and President Fain didn't get in, we wouldn't be here right now. This plant wouldn't be here right now. These guys brought the fight, and they brought it to the corporation. If we didn't have these guys, we wouldn't be here. I can't stress that enough. I'm so proud of these two individuals. I've known them for, Brandon, my whole damn life. Shawn, I've known him for 20-something years. So please give a big round of applause to President Fain.
All right, well, thank you, President Franson, my good friend Matt Franson, for that very kind words, and Director Campbell for your leadership in this region. Thank both of you for all your leadership and everything you're doing. It's one thing you're blessed with here in Belvidere is you got several great leaders that take care of business and put this membership first, and that's what this is all about. So, you know, while I'm honored to be here with all of you today, I want to make one thing very clear. We shouldn't have to be here today. We shouldn't have to be fighting to reopen a plant for one of the most profitable auto companies in the world, on the earth, to build some of the most profitable vehicles on earth, in the richest country on the earth. Right now, thousands of Belvidere auto workers should be in that plant making products. You should be bringing home a paycheck for your families, for this community. Stellantis should be owning this contract, but they're not. And it's not only because they're run by Carlos Tavares, a CEO who will stop at nothing in the name of corporate greed. It's not only because they're serving Wall Street billions in stock buybacks while they cry poverty when it comes to the workers. The reason Stellantis is refusing to keep their promise to the working class, the reason Belvidere is falling behind when this should be the home of thousands of the best blue-collar jobs in the country, is because our political and economic system is broken. You know, for over 40 years, corporate America has been beating down the working class. And I don't have to tell you what they've done to our communities and our labor movement. It's union busting, it's plant closures, it's a government bought and paid for by corporate America that lets them do it. It's trade deals like NAFTA, like Trump's NAFTA, the USMCA, which encourages companies like Stellantis to break their promises and to short workers for short-term gains. Stellantis is making record profits handing out billions in stock buybacks to juice up their stocks and help their Wall Street buddies instead of reopening and expanding a plant right here in Belvidere like they promised. I mean, since 2023, they've paid out $15 billion in buybacks and dividends. In the last 9 weeks alone, when they're crying about market conditions, they paid out $1 billion in buybacks. They're shipping thousands of good blue-collar jobs out of America to exploit workers in other countries. And they act with impunity because of Trump's failed NAFTA 2.0. Trump's bad trade deal is what lets the most profitable companies in the world abandon the American working class. And it lets them ship jobs out of this country so they can ship their product back in and make a killing off the American consumers and the taxpayers. So, you know, we know the USMCA is broken. And, you know, as one of the 10 senators that voted against Trump's NAFTA, my friend Bernie Sanders knows that too. And another one of the 10 senators that voted against Trump's NAFTA was Kamala Harris. She knows it too. And here's a really sad deal, you know. Yesterday, as Donald Trump was in Detroit, speaking at the Economic Club, slamming Detroit, Donald Trump admitted yesterday when he was speaking, he admitted that his trade deal was broken. He admitted that in 2026, when the USMCA is up for review, it needs major changes. And think about that. We've been saying this for years, and since he renegotiated and said that he fixed NAFTA, and after Kamala Harris came out and said she would renegotiate in 2026 when it's up for review, or we kill it, suddenly it's election season, and now Donald Trump says he wants another chance. He had a chance. He wants a chance to renegotiate his failed trade deal, his NAFTA 2.0, that he put in place when he said he fixed it. But I know we're not falling for it. We're smarter than that. Working class people are smarter than that. And if we're going to stop corporations from devastating our communities, we need leaders who will pass tougher laws that protect union jobs and prevent corporate greed from running rampant. And I can assure you of one thing. That leader is not and will never be Donald Trump. That leader's got to be someone who stood with us for years, not just weeks before an election. And that leader will be Kamala Harris. So on November 5th, we have a choice: support a candidate who protects billionaires or the one who fights for the working class. You know, and that choice to us is very clear. I mean, Kamala Harris stood with us last year when we were on strike, when we secured these investments at Stellantis. And Trump, he paved the way for him to screw us over. He talks tough about bringing jobs back. He talks about bringing all the auto jobs back. But his NAFTA 2.0 was a disaster. And even prior to that, we all know what his body of work did. Several plants were closing under his watch. He did nothing and said nothing to stop it. Not one damn thing. But he wants to say he's bringing the jobs back. Why the hell didn't he do it when he was president? With his failed NAFTA 2.0, we've seen more plant closures, more jobs shipped overseas. We've seen companies like John Deere and Masterlock take full advantage of his trade deal and exploit workers and further hurt communities just like this one. When Trump's NAFTA 2.0 comes up for review in 2026, I mean, do we really want the guy who sides with corporations in charge? Since his NAFTA 2.0, our trade deficit, our trade imbalance with Mexico has doubled, and more jobs are leaving because of it. We have to have leaders who are going to stand up to corporate America and not cozy up to them. And Harris has been that fighter. She was just one of 10 senators alongside Bernie that voted against Trump's NAFTA for that reason, because it didn't go far enough. And she knows how devastating it is for workers She's been with us in publicly holding companies like Stellantis accountable. She stood shoulder to shoulder with us on the picket lines. In 2019, when Trump was president and GM was on strike for 40 days, when Trump did and said nothing when workers were striking, Kamala Harris stood shoulder to shoulder with striking workers. Trump made a lot of empty promises, and he failed us. And Harris has been in the fight, and with her in office, we're going to see real wins for workers, just like we did, like the reopening of the Lordstown plant and higher wages for EV battery workers. I mean, those Lordstown workers, under Donald Trump's presidency, he told them, don't sell your houses, and he didn't do a damn thing. The plant shut down. Workers got sent all over the country, and hundreds of those workers have now returned home to Lordstown because of the work that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have done. And, you know, there's this debate about the EV industry and you know, Trump trying to say China's going to eat our lunch and we're going to lose it all to China. Trump has already said, think about this. This is a person running for president of the United States. He said already, basically he has ceded that work. He said China is going to own it. China's going to run it. We can't compete with China, were his exact words. I mean, I'd never in my life thought I would hear a president of this country say we cannot compete with somebody else. We built this fucking industry. So, you know, whether it's about EVs, whether it's about combustible engines, I know this, you know, our members don't go to work every day because they're passionate about combustible engines and EV batteries. We go to work because we want to provide for our families. We want to have dignity in our lives, and we want to live in a great community. That's what we do. That's what we do. That's why we do this. It's not about, you know, the batteries or the engines. It's about having a job where you can have some dignity in your life and provide for your family. You know, we do it because that's what we're passionate about. And, you know, in the UAW, we believe in our core principles. We call it 4 core principles, but we believe they're fundamental rights that every American deserves, union or not, working class people, anyone that goes to work, no matter where they work, they should get these 4 core principles. And that's a right to a living wage, no matter the job. Not a bare minimum wage. Minimum wage weren't intended to be a job for high school kids in the summertime. It's a minimum wage 80 years ago when it was put in place was intended to be where you could live a decent life, a standard of living. You know, we've let the right and people, you know, misconstrue this now to make it think it's just a summer job for teenagers. That's not what it is. We need a living wage no matter what work anyone does in this country. So that's our first core thing. The second core thing is adequate health care, the right to adequate health care. We're in the richest nation in the history of the world, and we rank like 26th or worse in health care. That is shameful. You know, and you shouldn't have to choose when something bad in your life happens, you get a disease or, you know, you get sick, whatever. You should have to choose between medicine or you know, paying your bills. And it's pathetic that we cannot go in the richest nation in the history of the world anytime something's going on and get the top-notch health care. You know, and that's the difference. You know, Trump's America, he believes, you know, those who can pay for it should get health care. Those who can't, you're on your own. That's right. And, you know, so our third core principle that we believe, third core fundamental right we believe in, the right to retirement security. You know, yeah. 13% of Americans, only 13% of Americans have a pension. 60% of Americans have no retirement savings. And they don't have retirement savings not because they're irresponsible and don't save their money. It's because people are busting their asses. We're working harder and longer than we've ever worked. But by the time we get done paying the bills at the end of the week and the end of the month, there's not enough left to save. And so that has to change. And so, you know, we all know where Donald Trump stands on pensions. He doesn't believe anyone should have them except the extremely rich and the CEOs. And on top of that, look no further than Medicare and Social Security. Every year of Donald Trump's presidency, he pushed for cuts to Social Security and Medicare. Every year. Kamala Harris has pledged, just as Joe Biden did, that they will not sign any cuts to Medicare and Social Security. And then our fourth fundamental right we believe in, the right to take our time back, to take our lives back. You know, people shouldn't have to work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. They shouldn't have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to scrape to get by paycheck to paycheck. That's not a life. And you know, no one at the end of their life is ever caught wishing that they would have worked more. You know, when we reach the end of our life, most people say it, they wish they had more time to be with family, more time to be with friends, more time to pursue things they want to do that they could never do because they were spending their whole life working their asses off, scraping to get by. You know, time with family. I mean, that's so important. And that's really, to me, that is what this entire election's about. That's what the entire movement, everything we're doing right now here in Belvidere is about. This is about humanity. And it's about where we want to go as a country, what we want to see this country look like in the future. And there are 2 very different visions here. I mean, that's why this decision for me, for our board, and for this union to endorse Kamala Harris was very simple, because there is 2 very distinct differences in these 2 candidates and where they want to take this country. And you think about this, you know, when we say it's about humanity, you got one class of people, and you got the Trump type, that they live, and this is how they eat our lunch, and they've ate our lunch for the last 40 years. They preach divide and conquer. They divide the masses. They divide us over race. They'll divide us over who somebody loves. They'll divide us over this manufactured border crisis. You know, and let me tell you, you know, when I hear about this border crisis, you know, I've seen another, you know, lie out there that, you know, which that's just what Trump and his people do constantly. You know, they talk about, I saw an article where someone was putting out there that 400,000 criminals came into our country under the Biden-Harris administration. Again, that's a lie. That report that was put out goes back 4 decades, 40 years. Donald Trump owns part of that, but they don't talk about that. They try to put it all on one administration, which is a lie. You know, we sat there in a debate with this person, with this scab, and he talked about this lie in Springfield, Illinois, how Haitian people that are here legally are eating people's pets. And that lie was born out of the fact that someone's pet disappeared one night, and they called the police only 3 days later for that pet to return home. But J.D. Vance had already told the lie, and Donald Trump went to repeat it. And just so you know, one step further, a lot of those Haitian immigrants that are in Ohio right now, some of those are our UAW family members. They're good people, they're productive citizens, and they're working. And they just want their fair shake. That's it. And you know, so when I talk about these 2 distinct differences, you know, there's a political party that likes to hold up their Bible, and they love to wrap themselves in a flag. And then they like to tell people, if you don't vote for us, you're not a good Christian, or you're not a patriot. And you know what? Here's the difference. Those people holding that Bible up, I don't believe 90% of them ever even opened the damn thing. The Bible I read, when Jesus was tested about what's the greatest commandment, was to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul. And the second one was like it. Love thy neighbor as thyself, meaning love your fellow human being. Not just your American human being, all human beings. And you know, look no further than the 2 distinct visions here, because Kamala Harris and her party and her team have preached nothing but unity and coming together. This nation, they know that we're stronger when we're together. Just like we know, solidarity is where our power is. Our power is in the membership. And you think about the symbolism of the United States. You think about that Statue of Liberty in New York. That Statue of Liberty was a symbol. It was saying, give me your weak, you're tired, you're poor. You know, Trump's vision of that is build that wall, and if you don't look like me and think like me, then stay the fuck out. You know, and to me, we talk about humanity and why I say this about humanity. Anytime there's a disaster, this to me is a picture of who we are as a human race and who we are as Americans. You know, when there's a disaster or an emergency, look at just like the recent 2 hurricanes that hit Florida within 3 weeks. Nobody goes in there and says, what political party are you? Nobody goes in there and says, what race are you? What gender are you? Nobody says any of that, you know. We look at that, when we see disaster, we see people suffering, we spring to action because it is built in us internally. It's a God-given thing that we are built to care for one another and to go to work to help one another. And that is who we are as a country. That's what makes us great, not Trump's hate. So that's why we have to elect leaders that put the people first, people like Kamala Harris who have spent a lifetime serving other people, not someone like Trump who has spent his lifetime and continues to spend his life serving himself. So UAW family, it is our time to stand up, to speak up, and show up for candidates who will actually stand with the working class and fight for what we deserve. And we need to show up for Kamala Harris and defeat Donald Trump the scab. And we got a big fight ahead of us, you know, with this company. You know, it's ironic. Yesterday they announced a shakeup in some of the leadership, but ironically, we saw that Carlos Tavares is still there, but they pretty much got rid and changed out about 10 different other corporate leaders. So obviously, Carlos isn't the problem. It's everybody else. And if you believe that, I got oceanfront property in Indiana I'd like to sell you. But, you know, it's a sad, stark reality of where we are right now. That is where our fight is. Carlos Tavares is the problem. Corporate greed's the problem. And we are not going to stop as a union. We've met with our council, and the leadership was unanimous that we are going to take on this fight. We are going to push for this, to do whatever the hell we got to do to win. You know, we are back. This union's back to the mantra, a blow to one's a blow to all. If they screw anybody anywhere, we're coming for them. So between what's going on here, what's going on in this company, and what's going on in this nation right now with our election, those are the massive priorities for us. I say it over and over. This is our generation's defining moment. This is our time to answer the call, and we're going to win this. But, yeah. So I thank you all. It's an honor to be here, but I want to bring up one of my good friends, a guy that's a true fighter for the working class. I mean, he's a hero of mine. I think he's a hero of working class people, and one of the few people, you know, that was willing to stand up against Trump's NAFTA and call out greed for what it is. He's been doing it for years. He's been a role model for me and a lot of us leaders. So I want to call up my good friend, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Thank you. Hey, Shawn. Thank you. All right, let me begin. All right, got an announcement to make. You ready for announcement? All right, you already won a victory. Apparently, Stellantis announced today that our good friend, Mr. Tavares, will be retiring in 2026. Congratulations. Look, it is a personal honor for me. Here, sit down. Jesus. You're making me nervous. It is, brothers and sisters, it's an honor to be here with you, and I'll tell you why. You know, I'm chairman of the committee that deals with health, education, labor, a lot of stuff. So I get involved with strikes and workers all across this country. And what I want to tell Shawn, and I want to tell all of you from the bottom of my heart, that the UAW's willingness to stand up to the greed of the big three and take them on in a way we have not seen a major union take on corporate America for decades. You know what you did? You not only won a great historic contract for the membership, I'll tell you something else what you did. Shawn, you and the UAW inspired workers all across this country to stand up to corporate greed. I think I will never forget the photograph of Shawn walking into a negotiating session with a T-shirt on saying, "Eat the rich." An historic moment. But what that strike was about, it resonated all over this country because it's not just the automobile industry. What do you think workers are seeing? They're seeing CEOs making outrageous salaries. They're seeing billions going into stock buybacks. And you're seeing the average American worker struggling to put food on the table or put aside a few bucks for a kid's education. And the American people are sick and tired of it. Love you too. And here we are today. Same old thing. UAW goes on strike, tough strike, win the strike, they sign a contract, and as part of that contract agreement, Stellantis made a promise that it would reopen its assembly line right here in Belvidere. And today, we are here to send a very clear message to the soon retiring Carlos Tavares. Keep your promise. You made a promise, keep it, don't renege on it. Reopen the plant here in Belvidere as soon as possible. Put the people who made the money for your company back to work. Now, Stellantis has called UAW's plan to reopen the plant here outrageous. Okay? So let me tell Mr. Tavares and the board at Stellantis what outrageous is about. It is outrageous that Stellantis has spent over $8 billion on stock buybacks and dividends this year to make its rich executives and stockholders even richer. That is outrageous at the time when they're reneging on the agreement they made with the UAW. It is outrageous that while Stellantis was laying off over 1,000 blue-collar workers in Belvidere last year, as CEO of Stellantis, that guy, Mr. Tavares, received $39 million in compensation. Got that? And this is really, I think, at the root of what is driving working people, and I come from a working, proud working-class family, driving working people crazy. And that is, this guy makes 500 times more than the average automobile workers. 500 times. And let us also be clear. You know, Stellantis is not some poor, struggling companies. You know, there are companies that have hard times. All right, we understand that. That ain't Stellantis today. This is a company that made over $6 billion in profits over the first half of this year. $6 billion in profits over 6 months. Not bad. This is a company that spent over $8 billion on stock buybacks and dividends this year. Not bad. This is a company that can and must keep its promise to the workers and reopen this plant in Belvidere. And let me say to Mr. Tavares, the soon retiring CEO. You, Mr. Tavares, are now the highest paid CEO among the traditional automakers. Mr. Musk, of course, is an exception to that rule. Last year, you, Mr. Tavares, received a 56% increase in your compensation package. Not bad. You guys ever negotiate a 56% increase in your wages? I don't think so. At almost $40 million a year, you, Mr. Tavares, earn 500 times more than the average auto worker. And the issue here, and it's not just Tavares and it's not just Stellantis, these guys live in another bloody world and have not a clue what the average American worker is going through. Mr. Tavares does not worry as he flies around in his private jet. He doesn't worry about how he's going to pay his mortgage, how he's going to pay the rent. He doesn't worry how he's going to feed his family. He doesn't worry about what happens to his kids or his family if somebody gets sick. All right? They live in another planet, and what we are seeing in terms of CEOs of large corporations, they could care less about the needs of the average American worker. And I think what we are saying here today in Belvidere, and I got to tell you, it's being said all over this country, is enough is enough. Brothers and sisters, and Shawn made this point, let's be clear, we are living in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. You got that? Okay. We should not have more income and wealth inequality than we have ever had in history. Do you all know that? There's never been a time in the history of this country where the gap between the people on top and the middle class and working class has been wider. You got three people on top, Mr. Musk and two others, who own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. You got the top 1% owning more wealth than the bottom 90%. You got CEOs, on average, making 300 times more than their workers, except in Stellantis, the number's even higher than that. That's absurd. Brothers and sisters, we are the only, and you don't see this on corporate TV too much, you don't hear it in the halls of the Congress, we are the only major country not to guarantee health care to all people as a human right. Last week, a couple of weeks ago, I had some guy from Denmark. I was talking to some guy from Denmark. I said, tell me, what happens when you get sick? He said, we'll go to the doctor. How much does it cost? And he looks at me like I'm crazy. Signs his name. What happens when you end up in the hospital? Yeah, what happens? Nothing. Walk out. They spend half as much as we do per capita on health care. And yet they manage, and this is not just Denmark, it's all of Europe, it's Canada, they manage to provide health care to all human beings as a human right, not a privilege. In the last couple of years, under Biden and Harris, we've been making some progress in lowering the outrageously high cost of prescription drugs. You all know some years ago, I took one from Detroit into Windsor, Ontario, with people who were dealing with diabetes, and we bought insulin for, anyone want to guess the differential? It's 1/10 the price in Canada. 1/10, same damn product. Same thing, all right? We pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Meanwhile, the pharmaceutical industry, with 1,800 well-paid lobbyists in Washington, D.C., makes billions and billions of dollars in profit. Thank you. You're right. They are. 1 out of 4 people. This is true. Look, in America today, you got 60,000 people who die unnecessarily because they don't get to a doctor on time. I speak to doctors all over this country. They tell me patients walk in terribly sick. Doctors say, why didn't you come in earlier? Well, I don't have any health care. I can't afford the co-payment. I can't afford the deductible. People are dying. 1 out of 4 people can't afford the prescription drugs they need. And the reason for all of that, it's that you got a health care system designed not to provide quality care to all of us, but to make huge profits for the insurance companies and the drug companies. Enough is enough. That's corporate greed. Now, we made some progress, and I give the Biden and Harris team a lot of credit. What we have done finally is we say, if you're a senior citizen dealing with diabetes, and a lot of them are, you ain't going to pay more than $35 a month for insulin. That's a step forward. People in this room, kids, have asthma. We've managed to drive down the price of asthma inhalers very substantially. And most importantly, for the first time in the history of this country, Medicare will be negotiating prices with the pharmaceutical industry. And when we talk about the needs of unions and workers, it really does bother me on a personal level, because I do come from a working class home, to see some people who I respect. I know them. They're good people. I'm not talking about people who are racist or sexist. Good people voting for Trump. And I know why. I know why. Because they feel dissatisfied that the Democrats have not been as strong as they should be in standing up for the working class. I know that. And I'm doing my best. Some of us are doing our best. But let me tell you, the one issue, maybe the most important of the trade union movement, I think Shawn will agree with me, is right now all over this country, because of what the UAW and other unions have done, people want to join unions. Unions today are more popular, am I right, Shawn? More popular in America today than they have ever been. Why is that? Because working people are not stupid. They understand that you can't get a decent contract negotiating all by yourself, right? That's what solidarity is about. And that's why people want to join unions. But you know what's happening? The corporate greed of the CEOs and the big corporations, you know what they're doing? They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on anti-union consultants, trying to bust unions, make it impossible for workers to join unions. And the antidote to that is passing what we call the PRO Act. Now, as I said, I'm chairman of the committee that deals with this stuff. We brought the PRO Act before the committee, 21 members of the committee. All 11 Democrats voted for it. Every one of the 10 Republicans voted against it. Trump is against the PRO Act. So if we're going to grow the trade union movement, we have to make it easier for workers to stand up against the illegal actions of the corporate America, which threatens workers. You want to form a union? Good. We're moving to China. You want to form a union? Good. You're fired. You want to form a union? Well, let me take you in the back room and tell you how terrible unions are and how wonderful we are. That's all illegal stuff. That's what the PRO Act does. That's what we're trying to do. I'll tell you something else, and I'm almost embarrassed. I really am embarrassed to have to tell you this. The federal minimum wage today is $7.25 an hour. And I was out recently, and I said, well, nobody really makes $7.25 an hour. I was in Texas. I said, oh, yeah, people do make $7.25 an hour. And many make $9 an hour and $10. I don't care what state you live in. I don't care what community you live in. Nobody survives on $10 an hour in this day and age. So we have got to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, in my view, at least $17 an hour. And the UAW, in their contract negotiations, did something I thought was really, really smart. Other people thought you were crazy. And they raised the issue of the 32-hour work week. Remember that? He said 32 hours a week. You're crazy. Why are you talking about this? Let me tell you why. Listen to this, because you ain't going to see it on television. Over the last 50 years, 50 years, there has been an explosion in technology, right? Every one of you workers is now producing far more than somebody on your job 50 years ago because of that technology, right? Worker productivity has gone up. Now, you would think that with all of that increase in worker productivity, you're producing more, the average American worker would be making a hell of a lot more money now in real dollars. All right, let me tell you something that is not discussed very much. And this is why the American people are so angry. Over the last 50 years, real inflation accounted for wages for the average American worker has gone down by $40 a week. Can you believe that? All right, that's why people are angry. That's why people are looking at Trump as an alternative. He ain't an alternative, but I can understand the anger. Let me tell you something else. Rand Corporation, big money interest, they did a study on distribution of wealth in America in the last 50 years. And what they found during that period is there was a 50 redistribution of wealth in the 50-year period. $50 trillion went from the bottom 90%, everybody in this room, to the top 1%. Got that? So what you're seeing is workers' wages going nowhere, massive transfer of wealth from the bottom 90% to the top 1%. So all that we are saying here in Belvidere is not complicated, and it is supported by the overwhelming majority of the American people. We have got to stop this outrageous level of corporate greed. Nobody objects to a CEO making a decent compensation package. Nobody objects to corporations making profits. But enough is enough. This country belongs to all of us, not just a handful of billionaires. So, brothers and sisters, we've got a lot of work to do. And in the next 3-4 weeks, we have to do everything to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. But this I say to you, as the longest-serving independent in the history of the United States Congress. What I say to you is that the day after the election, under the leadership of the American Trade Union Movement, we have got to put together a strong grassroots movement. We are the vast majority of people. Now, they got the money. I understand that. I deal with it every day. I deal with the drug companies and the insurance companies and Wall Street and all of the big auto companies. That's what I do. That's my job. I deal with them. They got lobbyists up the kazoo all over Washington, D.C. But at the end of the day, never forget this. If we do not allow our opponents to divide us up by the color of our skin or where we were born or our sexual orientation. I don't have a PhD in mathematics, but I do know that 99% is a hell of a larger number than 1%. Now, it's not Bernie. It's not Bernie. It's you. All right, understand this. What they want to do, it is you. And it's the UAW. And it's the union movement. All right, we have the power if we exercise it. And you got the leadership now that's exercising it. So, brothers and sisters, I got 4 kids. I got 7 grandchildren. Together, we have got to create the kind of nation that we can become, not based on greed, but based on decency and justice. So I just want to, and I say this, I don't know that you appreciate it, all of you in this room. You are heroes and heroines. You are helping to lead this country in a new direction. Let's go out. Let's do it. Thank you all very much.